Good afternoon, Mr. Musigidi.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chairperson, today, this afternoon at least, we have Chair.
What do we remain with in front of us?
So, Chair, you should have 3 files. So there's one file which we'll be using mostly today. It says Ms. Maphosho, Zelda Maphosho, that's the file. And then there's
Labeled statements and annexures, file 1.
File 1.
Yes.
And then the second file, Chair, but you don't need to go into that. It's one that should say exhibit avoidance and Khan disciplinary hearing. And then the last one, it should say the IPID report file. It's wrongly worded Mahani on top, Chair.
Let's start. I hope I will see them when we get to them.
Yes.
If I don't, I will share with
yes, Chair.
my co-commissioner.
Chair, you'll see on your desk there should be a blue file as well, with a blue folder. But it will be a file that I would say it's a view once file that we will discuss but not make public, Chairperson. We will deal with it in due course, Chairperson.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Chair, this afternoon we have Director Takalani Zelda Maphosho from IPID, Chair. She said she will take an oath.
Good afternoon, Director Maphosho.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Please state your full names for the record.
Takalani Zelda Maphosho.
Do you swear that the evidence you are going to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Director, just to confirm, at least for the purpose of this afternoon, I need you to focus on the file that will say Ms. Maphosho's statement and annexures. Do you have that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And then if you open that file, you will see that on the first page, it's an index to a statement. And then if you flip over to page 1, it will say witness statement by Takalani Zelda Maphosho. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And do you confirm that is your statement?
I confirm.
Okay, if you go to page 20 of that statement, you will see that there is a signature there. The bottom.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. Do you confirm that to be your signature?
I confirm.
Thank you. Chairperson, just for context, Director Maphosho conducted an investigation into the events that arose at Eriton, which is what we were discussing a bit earlier on. Just to be clear, Chairperson, what she investigated was a complaint by Warrant Officer Pakula, Warrant Officer Mahane, and Chief Mashaba, who laid a complaint against General Khan, Kadwa, and 3 others. So that's why she was investigating a case of defeating the ends of justice, Chairperson. And she produced a report which we will deal with in due course, Chairperson. So that will be a context of her testimony, Chair. Chair, lastly, how I plan on dealing with her evidence, Chair, is that because a statement contains subtopics, I would propose that we deal with the subtopics and then ask questions so that we get through the statement quicker compared to going through the statement and coming back to deal with the issues, Chairperson. Thank you. Director Maphosho, then let's go to page 1 of your statement. When you start reading into the record under introduction, just don't read the personal number that's there. So please read that into the record and go through your statement.
Thank you, Commissioner. I am the holder of personal number this employed by the National Department Independent Police Investigative Directorate, situated at 473 Benstra Building, Stanza Bupape Street, in Pretoria. I am holding a rank of Assistant Director. Commissioner, you were referring me as a director, I'm an Assistant Director. Investigations at the head office with the following contact details. The following facts to which I depose here to falls within my personal knowledge and belief are both true and correct unless otherwise stated.
Just for the future, perhaps, but I've noticed some people do exactly what's been done here. If you say the facts are within your personal knowledge and belief and are both true and correct unless otherwise stated, what that means is that you are in the same document going to be stating facts that are not true and correct.
No, Commissioner, I withdraw that.
You see what you say there, that unless otherwise usually refers to what's within your personal knowledge and belief.
Okay.
So the otherwise blah, blah, blah relates to that, but not the truth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll continue. On 2026-0504, I received a notice in terms of Rule 10.6 from the Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference and Corruption in the Criminal Justice System. I referred to as the Commission.
Shouldn't we skip what the notice said?
Should I skip that?
Yes,
We can.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Perhaps go to 3.3, then you can go to 4
Okay.
on page 2. Thank you.
Okay. 3.3, I was also asked to provide the summary of the recommendations made with a focus on recommendation made against the key role players, in particular senior law enforcement officials related to these, an update on the status of the recommendations. Should I go to 4?
Yes, let's go to 4 under academic qualifications and in-house training.
Okay. I'm matriculated at Ranger Secondary School. I have a diploma in policing obtained from UNISA. I also obtained my BTech degree in policing from UNISA. Also an LLB degree from UNISA. I have completed the following training course. South African Police Basic Training course in 2003 at Pretoria West College Training Academy. Detective Learning Program, that is Resolving of Crime course in 2010 at Hammanskraal SAPS Training Academy. Detective Commanders Learning Program in 2014 at SAPS PAL Training Academy.
Please continue under work experience.
Okay. I have started working as a constable at the SAPS in 2003, stationed at Sentin Police Station, working in the Client Service Center. I was transferred to Sentin Detective Service in 2008. In 2011, I was promoted and transferred to the Independence Complaints Directorate, ICD, as a senior investigator stationed at Gauteng Provincial Office. In 2012, ICD changed to IPID. I was then appointed in terms of Section 22 of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate Act 1 of 2011. The objective of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate is to give effect to the provision of Section 206 of Subsection 6 of the Constitution to ensure independent oversight of the South African Police Service and Municipal Police Service, to provide for independent and impartial investigation of identified criminal offences allegedly committed by members of South African Police Service and Municipal Police Service. I perform my duties in terms of Section 24 of the Independent Police Directorate Act 1 of 2011, read with Section 206 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa Act 108 of 1996. In 2015, I was promoted to be an Assistant Director Investigation at IPID Gauteng Provincial Office to supervise in senior investigators and investigators.
The IPID, positions, do they have equivalent positions within subs? I just want to get an idea of where exactly assistant director is in relation to subs ranks.
Yes, the equivalent with subs is lieutenant colonel.
Oh, thank you.
Within subs.
Thank you. That's relatively senior.
All right, thank you. You can continue.
Okay. In 2020, I was transferred to IPID National Office, working at National Specialized Investigative Team. That is called NCT in short. It is a unit within subs, within IPID that deals with the high-profile cases and the complex cases that are reported at IPID.
Before you move on, just on that last sentence, Director, what do you mean by high-profile cases? How do you classify that?
We classify high-profile cases in terms of the suspect involved, if it's a high-ranking officers, or it is a case that is on the media. Yeah, I can. The rank of the person involved in the media inquiries, we classify those as high-profile cases.
Okay, and out of interest, the case that we are concerned with today of Ariton, would you classify it or consider it to be a high-profile case then?
It was a high-profile case.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move to the next page, and there we are dealing with the Boyson's.
Maybe before you do that, what makes the Ariton case a high-profile case?
The rank of the people that were involved.
Against whom the complaint was laid?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can we then move to the next page? We're dealing with the Boyson's Class 25210 of 2021 investigation. And there we're dealing with the complainant.
The complaint?
Yes.
Okay. The matter was referred from the Office of Executive Director. On 2021-10-13, the complainants, that is Chief Mashaba, Warrant Officer Pakula, and Warrant Officer Makhano, came to IPID National Office to lodge a complaint of defeating the ends of justice. The complainants were interviewed by the members of NCT, and I was part of the interview. The complainants were advised to open a case at the police station and provide IPID with the case number. The case was opened at Boyson's police station and registered as Boyson Case 252 of 10-2021. After receiving a case number, on 2021-10-19, a referral memorandum was drafted for the approval by the executive director or someone delegated by the executive director to register a case in terms of Section 28(1)H of IPID Act. This Section 28(1)H of IPID Act, it refers to any other cases that the police officers are involved, but they are not mentioned in terms of the Act between paragraph A to G of the IPID Act. So if it is a case that was referred by the executive director, we register that as Section 28(1)H. The referral memorandum was approved, and then I've attached the memo as my TK1, and the file was registered as PCCN number 2021-10-0314 in terms of Section 28(1)H that was defeating the ends of justice. Paragraph 16. In essence, Section 28(1)H gives IP the authority to investigate the police conduct that acts unlawfully and intentionally obstruct the course of administrative of justice. The case was then assigned to me for further investigation. On 2021-10-28, NCT members interviewed the informer Tumelo, who gave the complainant Mashava information about the drugs.
Before we move on, can I just then get a better understanding on, let's go to paragraph 12. You seem to suggest that on the 13th of October 2021, you have the 3 complainants coming to your office. And out of that, you interviewed them, and the question is that you advised them to go and open a case.
Yes.
Is that the normal standard?
It is a normal standard because when they came to IPID, they were under the impression that they are coming to open a case with IPID. Whereas IPID, we investigate cases after they've been opened at the police station.
So without which you can't move on?
Yes.
Okay. And then just to understand, so the 3 came to your office on that day, and you interviewed them. Did you interview them ever again after this, what I would call probably a preliminary assessment?
They handed their statements in the docket, but we also had another encounter when they were giving their supplementary statements.
So besides the statements that they provided, so what I'm trying to ascertain is that did you have because this seems to me, because they haven't opened a case, after they've opened a case, as it were, did you sit down with them again to get a fuller version of their complaints?
No, other than them giving us the statement, the supplementary statement, we never had any other engagements in terms of interviewing them about the matter.
Okay.
I assume that Tumelo is Mr. Nku.
Yeah, Tumelo is Mr. Nku.
Why do you call him an informer?
During our interview, he indicated that he's the informer. He used to give information to a certain general that I didn't mention on the statement. I didn't want to mention the name of the general because it's the information that was never verified.
Beyond what he told you, did you establish that he is indeed an informer?
The person that he was
and that there wasn't anything beyond him being an informer. Let me give you the background of why I'm asking this.
Okay.
Evidence that has been laid before us suggests, and I use suggests advisedly because I'm not in a position to conclude on this aspect. Evidence given before us suggests that he was actually actively involved and complicit in the matter concerning the suspected drugs, that is the consignment of those drugs, or at least the receipt or intended receipt of those suspected drugs here in South Africa. So it's in that context that I'm asking you, why do you call him an informer? Does it mean that you accepted that he was an informer? Because you are stating it as a fact that he's an informer.
Yeah, I'm stating this because that is the information that he gave us. However, the information was not verified because he mentioned the handler as a certain general who already passed on. So that is the information that was never verified.
Would it not have been more accurate to refer to somebody who was referred to as an informer rather than to state it as a fact that he is or was an informer?
Oh, okay. No, accepted.
Yes. All right, thank you. Please continue.
Thank you, Chair. Director Maphosho, at paragraph 15, you make reference to Annexure TK01.
Yes.
Chair, just to clarify, the witness makes reference to about 30 documents, or close to 40 in fact. We're not going to go through each and every annexure, but we'll go through some of them, and she's more than welcome as well to point me where she wants to go. But for now, can we then go to TK1? It will be on page 1, Chair, of the same annexures. It's the same bundle, Chair. So you might need to keep one hand on where we are on the file as we go through the annexures, Chair. Director Maphosho, can you just briefly go again? What is the purpose of this memorandum?
The purpose of this memorandum is to seek approval from the executive director or someone delegated by the executive director to give IPID permission to investigate these kind of cases where the SAPS members are involved, but those are not the cases that are mentioned in terms of Section 28, 1A to G.
Okay, and then you give a brief description of what you call the merits of the complaint. Would that be based on the statements or based on the initial interview, or it's a consideration of both, having met with them and having received their statements when you at least compile this memorandum?
It's after we receive their statement. Remember, we only register this after they've already registered the case. So with the statement of the complainant, that's when we can generate this document for approval.
All right, can you then, for the record, and because this narrative goes through, even find its way to your final report, can you read through for the record the description you have there in bold?
Okay. It is alleged that on Thursday, 8 July 2021, Chief Mashaba received an information about the suspected drugs that were to be transported from Durban to Alberton. The following day, on the 9th, the information was followed, and indeed the truck was followed to the depot where it was parked. Chief Mashaba asked for assistance, and he was assisted by Warrant Officer Mukhana and Warrant Officer Pakula. The truck was then escorted to its destination at Aratin, where it was opened by the owner. The police searched the container, and drugs were found in the container. The driver of the truck and the person who were to receive the whole cargo were placed under arrest. However, the Hawks members arrived at the scene, and the member who recovered the drugs were later arrested. The driver and the owner of the cargo were then released.
All right. I will raise my concern with you with this description, and then you can comment if you want.
Okay.
And my concern really is that it does not seem to capture the heart of the case. I know it's a brief summary, but it seems to be omitting at least very crucial information. For example, I'll mention to you that it says nothing about the informer, Mr. Nku. It says nothing about Warrant Officer Mahani's designation. It says nothing about people from Pretoria attending to an incident in Soweto. It says nothing about the drugs allegedly being solicited to be moved to Germiston. And it certainly says nothing about the loading of the drugs by the very same complainants into the what they call Mr. Mahani's baggie. So it gives a very, I would say, a sanitized account of events based on their version only. I'm just concerned that it doesn't give the full picture of what, and this information obviously is used to inform you as the IPID whether to proceed with the matter or not. And having seen and having consulted with other witnesses and having been aware of the fuller picture, is there any comment you want to make on that observation?
This document is prepared on the very early stage, before even the investigation was conducted. At this particular time, we will only have maybe the statement of the complainant, coupled with what we come out from the interviews that we had with the complainants is not the fuller version of what transpired during the investigation, because at this particular time, we haven't even started with the investigation.
No, that's correct, and that's my very concern, that you didn't have a proper, or at least you were not provided with a full version by the complainants.
Yeah.
But let's move to page 2, just out of interest. It says there in the middle of the of the page, when you deal with the prospect of successful investigation, what does that mean, and how do you arrive to that scoring of 50%?
Because we haven't even started with the investigation, and because we don't have the version of the other members, the suspects. So for us, it's 50-50 chances whether they're telling the truth or not. So we cannot say it's above 50 or below 50 because we don't have the version of the other members who are involved.
Okay. But I would assume because there is a below and above, there are circumstances where you might score below and above.
I haven't even found something like that. For me, it's always 50-50.
No, I'm just saying on the document, it does give an option of...
in the document, yes.
Yes. All right, thank you, Director. Can we then proceed on page 5? You deal with so we're going back to the statement, Chair. We deal with a summary of allegations. Can you pick it up at paragraph 18, where you deal with, it's an A1 of Mr. Samuel Ziani Mashaba.
Okay. The complainant alleged that on Thursday 2021-0709, they were following up on an information about drugs from Brazil that they were in a container and were going to be delivered at Scania, Aretin. He was assisted by Warrant Officer Mokana from Zonkeziso SAPS, who was referred to him by Warrant Officer Pokungwani. These Annexure 3 and 4 is the statement of Mashaba and the statement of Warrant Officer Pokungwani.
Yeah, you can proceed.
Okay. They arrived at Aretin at about 8 o'clock. The information was positive and the drugs were found inside the container. The driver of the truck, the lady was about to receive the goods and the manager was present, were placed under arrest by Warrant Officer Pakula. I've attached Warrant Officer Pakula's statement as an annexure as well. While the police officer were busy at the crime scene, opening the case and waiting for relevant role players to come, 2 police officers from Boysens arrived and inquired about what was happening, and they explained to them about the drug bust. The police officer from Boysens SAPS were satisfied and were willing to assist them. They even gave feedback to radio control 10111, indicating that all was in order. And then I've attached the report from 10111 as TK6. A police officer who was later known to them as Warrant Officer Rikoto arrived and had an argument with Warrant Officer Pakula. Warrant Officer Rikoto did not want them to open a case, but to open an inquiry file. Warrant Officer Pakula refused and he was then told that General Khan was on his way. Members of the Provincial Dog Unit, Captain Mudupi, Lieutenant Colonel Maluleke from Technical Operation Management Section, Tom's Hawks also arrived at the crime scene. Lieutenant Colonel Maluleke wanted to take over the crime scene as the drug was part of his mandate. Sergeant Pakula and Warrant Officer Sape from Dog Unit arrived, followed by General Khan. General Khan then said he was taking over the crime scene. Without getting the information from the officers who recovered the drugs, he then instructed Warrant Officer Makhano to sit in his buggy. He instructed Chief Mashaba to go to his car and took his firearm and cell phone. At about 13:30, the members of DPCI, amongst others, General Kadwa, Brigadier Sokobela, Colonel Stein, Captain Sibula arrived at the crime scene and they arrested the police officer who made the drug bust. That is Warrant Officer Makano, Warrant Officer Pagula, Chief Mashaba, and Tumelo. They were charged with dealing in drugs and possession of drugs, stroke use of drugs. The truck driver, the person who was receiving the goods, and the manager were released. Additional statement of Samuel Tiani Mashaba was attached as well, indicating that on the day of incident, he contacted General Mawela, informing him that General Khan was busy harassing them at Aratin crime scene. A statement of General Mawela was obtained. I've attached it as TK8, and he indicated that he cannot confirm nor deny receiving a call from Mashaba. A statement of General Mtombeni, attached as TK9. He also stated that he alleges that he remembers speaking to an official attached to Gauteng Traffic Police who introduced himself as Mashaba, who indicated that they were following the information on drugs, and he was complaining that the police were about to arrest them. He referred the complaint to Brigadier Shibiri. The statement of General Shibiri, he was a brigadier by then, was also attached as TK10. He stated that he had a conversation with Mashaba relating to the following up on information about drug trafficking at Aratin. And they were accosted by a member of SAPS Crime Intelligence, Hawks, and want to arrest them. He referred him to General Kadwa of DPCI. They opened a case as per Poison 98 of 7/2021, and it was investigated by DPCI. A member, Captain Sibula, I believe now is a lieutenant colonel.
Yes.
The arrested member were taken to Poison's police station and detained at about 19:30.
Sorry. Did you ever look at and compare the statements that were taken in respect of the drug charges or drug-related charges? That is, statements taken by those investigating those charges. Did you ever do a comparison?
We were
I'm asking, for example, because on this aspect, the aspect we've just dealt with, there is a statement that says Brigadier Shibiri, who later became a general, called at the scene and said, isn't there a way in which all of this can be resolved amicably? And I don't know whether he was referred to someone else, and then he said, he basically left it at that and didn't follow up on this amicable resolution. That's why I'm asking whether you ever did any comparison with what was happening on the other side. Did you just run with what you established with regard to the complaints that had been laid by these three people, two of whom were SAPS members and one of whom was a provincial traffic officer?
Commissioners were never given a chance to check the other case because the DPCI refused with the docket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember that detail.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Director, just to go back on page 5, at paragraph 18.1, maybe we need to correct that the incident occurred it was on a Friday, not Thursday.
18.1.
Yes, but the substance of my question really is that you were told, at least from a statement by Mashaba, that they were following up an information, and he doesn't mention Mr. Nku. But you had testified earlier on that you guys had an interview with Mr. Nku. Can you assist us from from your recollection, what did you at least ascertain from that interview? Perhaps before you do that, can we accept, at least for now, that there's no statement that you took from Mr. Nku?
Yeah, Commissioner, there's no statement that we took from Mr. Nku.
Yes, can we then maybe, as far as you can recall from that interview, what can you relay?
Yeah, as a team, we are concerned about how did they know about the drugs, because they were just telling us that they were following up on information about the drugs from Brazil to Scania. So the question with us was, how did you know about the drugs? That's when they told us about Tumelo. And when they came to IPID, it was only 3 of them. Tumelo was not part of them. So we asked for the contact details of Tumelo so that we can interview Tumelo. Hence, we interviewed Tumelo at a later stage.
And if I understand well, there was no reason stopping him from being part of the complainant, is there?
No, there was nothing.
And how far did you get in terms of where he received
The information. Commissioner, he was not making too much of a sense, because he was talking about issue of what do you call this, hacking and something like that. That is a cyber crime hacking, something like that. And he kept on telling us that he is an informer of that, the late general, that he was giving the information to the late general.
In your conversation,
So was the point that he had hacked onto a system that revealed that there was such a consignment? Or what exactly was this hacking about?
He was talking about so many things. He was not talking about only...
Let's just focus on the hacking for a minute, please.
No, he was talking about hacking in order for him to get this kind of information about the illegal transportation of things. It can be drugs, it can be any other thing. It can be any other trafficking. So he was talking about so many things, but he was not giving us anything to work on.
Did you ask for anything concrete? Because surely there would have been records of the hacking.
No, he didn't have anything. It was just what he was saying.
Did you ask for the records?
Commissioner?
Did you ask for the records?
Yeah, we asked for the record, but he didn't have anything. It was only what he was saying, and of which we didn't have anyone to confirm what he was saying.
Okay, thank you.
in that conversation, did he at least disclose to you that the previous day he was in Durban and that he followed the truck all the way to Gauteng?
Yeah, Commissioner, he did mention that he followed the truck from Durban to Yellow Jersey.
Yes.
Yes.
Did he mention to you what his interest would have been in doing all of that?
We were interested in knowing as to why the interest, but he kept on saying he's been giving out information to these police officers, and he doesn't know whether the information was positive or not. So this time he was trying to make sure that yes, whatever information he got, when they open the trucks will be there. That was his response.
And was your sense that he is an informer/informant registered with SAPS, or was an ad hoc, if I may use that term, an ad hoc informer? What was your sense? What was your sense?
My sense was that he was not a registered informer, because if he was a registered informer, he was going to tell us about the handler, the general who passed away, but the general was working with other people. So from my understanding, like, he was not a registered informant.
Yes. Director, one thing that immediately stands out when you look at the statements of Director Mashaba and Joseph Makana is, in the case of Director Mashaba, it says he's based in Sidibeng in Vereeniging. That's the first thing that stands out. In the case of Makana, it says he's in the CIMAC Crime Information Analysis Center in Zonkizizwe. Does that not immediately raise a question? What are you doing in Ireton? If you are a traffic director in Vereeniging, or you are a crime analyst in Zonkizizwe, what are you doing in a drug bust? Because those two jobs have nothing to do at all with being involved in a drug bust. Before you even get to what happened, just their positions. A traffic officer in Vereeniging should have nothing to do with a drug bust in Johannesburg. A CIMAC officer, we've heard that they are desk bound because they analyze stats, crime stats, to assist those who are operational to do their job. When they say to you, we conducted a drug bust, isn't the first inquiry, what were you doing there? Because that's not your job.
Yeah, Commissioner, it was our concern that why, especially with Mashaba as a traffic official, but he told us that he normally gets this kind of information. I don't know his job description where he's working, but he indicated that he do get this kind of information, and then he normally assists with his kind of operation. He was saying he used to work with General Mawela. So I don't know his job description.
I'm looking at the affidavit that he gave you, paragraph 1. It gives his name, ID number, and he says, I am employed as chief at Gauteng Traffic Police, Sedibeng in Vereeniging, on page 6. It's your annexure TK2, which you referred to in your statement.
Okay.
So Sedibeng is a district, it's in the Vaal.
Yes.
And he says, I'm following a truck in Ekurhuleni, and I'm following it to Johannesburg, and I'm conducting a drug bust. So where he works, that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is he's a traffic officer. What is a traffic officer doing? Conducting a drug bust.
Commissioner, we tried to find out from him. That is why maybe he also gave his supplementary statement to indicate that he used to work with General Mawela. That is why on that particular day, he also phoned General Mawela. I don't know how they work at the traffic side. I don't know whether if you are working in Sidibeng, you can also attend to the issue of Tshwane, for example. I don't know. But
why I'm raising this, IPID has testified before us.
okay.
And one of the issues they took with EMPD officers conducting a bust in Rosebank or Kilani is that A, that's not the job description of traffic officers. And secondly, they are outside of their jurisdiction. And for those two reasons, their conduct was unlawful. And we heard that from IPID when it was testifying. So the first thing that stands out looking at paragraph 1 is here is a traffic officer in Vereeniging who is leading, because he's the leader. He says, I called other people, leading the chase of a truck, because that's what they were doing, and conducting a drug bust. They're chasing it in Ekurhuleni, outside of Sidibeng. They are chasing it all the way to Johannesburg, outside of Sidibeng. But he's a truck officer. He has no business opening containers and finding out that there are drugs in those containers and arresting owners of those containers or the recipients of the goods that are in the container.
That's true, commissioners. Like I'm saying, we don't investigate the traffic officers. I don't even know their jurisdiction, whether a person from traffic in Sedibeng can also come and work in Tshwane or in Johannesburg. I don't know.
But as an investigator, don't you follow up, check those kind of things? I mean, I'm not sure that it's open to you to say, I don't know what he does, what his job is and his job description, because if it turns out, at least in my mind, if it turns out that his job has nothing to do with what he did on the day, then you, as the investigator, you probe further into why was he there in the first place. So to say you just took, because that's effectively what you're saying, you took his word at face value and made no interrogation of it. He said, I was following up on a tip-off, and then we conducted this operation, when in fact, perhaps had you asked, what do you do where you work? Let's speak to his superior and find out whether what he got involved with is part of his job. Then if his superior had said, no, it's not part of his job, he had no business to be there, it may have led you down a different line of inquiry.
I understand, Commissioner, but those were our complainants. And as IPID, we don't investigate our complainants. That was the role of SAPS. SAPS, I believe SAPS investigated whether they were supposed to be at that crime scene or not. However, we did manage to obtain the statement of their supervisors to try to find out whether on that day they knew about the operations or not.
But you test what the complainant says. That's why in that form you say 50%. It's because you eventually must test what they say.
Yeah, we did test that because with Mashaba, the supervisor indicated that he didn't know about the operation.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of answer to you, isn't that what should pique your suspicion? That he's in an operation that his superior says, I didn't know anything about it, it's not his job. That would have piqued your suspicion about him to inquire further about what in fact was he doing there. Because the complaint, as we understand it, their complaint is that they were arrested when they were conducting a lawful operation.
Operation, yes.
Yes. So if they were interrupted conducting an unlawful operation, you wouldn't have found the police officers guilty of it. You wouldn't have made a negative recommendation if it turned out this was an unlawful operation. So that you don't investigate, you don't test that even after his superior said, I have no idea what he was doing on the day is disconcerting?
I understand, Commissioner.
I find it quite disturbing that you say you don't probe your complainants. That's quite disturbing. I think that's a wrong approach to investigation. What's your comment?
Commissioners, at IPID, most of our complainants are suspects on the SAPS cases. I'll give you an example. You'll find maybe the suspects were robbing a bank, and there was a shootout between the police and the suspect, and the police shot and killed maybe one or two of the suspects. IPID investigate that case because we are checking the conduct of the police. We are not checking what the criminal were doing in robbing the bank. But we are checking whether the conduct of the police, they acted within the scope of their mandate or not. Whether they killed somebody, maybe they killed two, and then the third suspect ran away, and then he surrendered somewhere, but the police shot and killed that particular person. Those are the conduct that as IPID we are checking. So we don't investigate the initial cause of the bank robbery, but the police are the one who must investigate the bank robbery. Then IPID, when we investigate this murder, we obtain the copies of that robbery.
Would this be murder committed during the robbery?
Yes.
I'm not sure that I follow the distinction, Jen. I'm not sure that I follow the distinction then. Yeah, I'm not sure that I do.
I'm trying to give a scenario that we don't check the conduct of our complainant or our victims as to what happened prior to this incident. But the police, they investigate the robbery case, then IPID will get the copies of the robbery.
Maybe let's just forget about that example because it may just confound the issues. Let's look at what was at issue here. You have these people who are complainants. And what we are saying is it is just odd for you to say that you basically do not interrogate what's been brought to you insofar as it relates to or concerns your complainants. That is what I find difficulty with. I think it's a different, I think it's a wrong footing to proceed from. Because ultimately, when you decide that there is a case to be answered, which you should then refer both to the employer and to the NPA, it can only be because you are satisfied that there is indeed a case. And if there are issues that are questionable insofar as your complainants are concerned, it may well be that those issues will point in the opposite direction, which is that there is, how should I put it? You follow me. You follow me.
I do, Commissioner. In this case, the commanders of Pakula said he had the knowledge of what Pakula was going to be doing on the day of incident. And also, the commander of Mokano gave a statement saying Mokano called him and informed him about the operation. So for me, it was something that they are commanders, because we investigate the police, not the traffic officers. The police commanders knew where their members were doing operation on that particular day.
Let me
They
take
were
you.
informed.
Okay, let me. Yeah, you do investigate traffic officers. Yeah.
No, not the Gauteng traffic officers, the Metro Police.
It's Metro, or it's Metro and subs only?
Yes.
Okay, anyway, let me go back to the question that triggered the debate that we are having now. That question was about you following up on the issue that Commissioner Khumalo raised. And you said you did follow up on that. But later you then said that you know nothing about the jurisdiction of someone like Chief Mashaba and so on. Then I started wondering, what exactly would you then have inquired about if you basically know nothing about these issues around the jurisdiction and so on? What then would you have inquired about? That goes even to Warrant Officer Mokano being desk-bound. So what would you have inquired about? Because you said you did inquire. Do you remember saying so?
Yes.
Now, if later in the debate you say you knew nothing about those issues, that in my mind raises the question, what then did you inquire about in this regard?
The commissioners, I inquired about whether they were on duty on that particular day.
That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. That's not the issue that was being raised around whether they ought to have been there in the first place. That's a totally different question to where they were. And were they authorized in terms of maybe their bosses saying, no, you can't go to Eraton and so on? This is a totally different question. Is this something that fell within their mandate? Is this something they could, in law, have done?
The only person that we did not inquire much, it was Chief Mashaba.
No, the question is, what did you inquire about?
We inquire whether they were on duty and whether their commanders knew about the operation.
I will leave it. That's not the question I'm asking, but I will leave it there.
Thank you, Chair. Director, my concern is this. Remember, you guys are policing the police. You're supposed to be the watchdog and ensuring that the police are kept in order. And in doing so, it can never be, in my understanding, that it's just a matter of who of the naughty kids came to report first to the principal. You need to check the facts that are brought to you to verify those allegations. Because I think you'll accept that there is a potential or possibility of the police using or weaponizing IPID against each other. You'll accept that.
I do, Commissioner, but the cases differ. It's just that this one, there are police officers involved as well. But on a normal course of event where it's just a normal member of public, we don't check as to whether this person, what happened prior to whatever that is happening, or the case that the person is reporting happened prior to that. With this one, yes, I understand it was the police officers who reported this matter. However, we have two cases. We've got the case, the 98 case and the 252 case. So we couldn't do what the case 252 was, the case 98, the investigating officer of case 98 was doing, because it will seem as if now we are interfering with their cases. So hence we only dealt with case 252.
Let me ask a question that's related to one of the very questions I put to you. Had you been aware that there were text exchanges between Mr. Nku and someone that he referred to as boss, and who was saved on his device as Alpha, is it? Saved as Alpha. The content of which, that is the content of the text, the content of which was or appears to have been, the ultimate link is still going to be made, hopefully, and we were promised by the evidence leaders that that link will be made. But for argument's sake, let us assume that that link will be made. So had you been aware that there were exchanges of texts that appeared to follow up on this consignment of suspected drugs constantly, the texts even expressing concern in case that consignment were to be intercepted or, however else, not to be received by apparently them. And also, if you had been aware that Mr. Nku drove to Durban a day before the truck that carried this container drove up to Gauteng, which was the 7th of July, 2021, and that on the 8th of July, he drove up, and that was the same day that the truck also drove up to Gauteng, And then on the 9th, that's the day on which he, together with these two, the traffic officer and warrant officer Mohana, then followed the truck to Ayrton from Yellow Jerseys. Had you been aware of all those facts, would you still have made the recommendation that you made? In particular, the very first ones that appear with Nku involved, with someone he calls boss, texts that are concerned about, are we going to get delivery of this? It may be a mission impossible if this gets, was it about another one? The May delivery. About. No. I'll leave out the concerns and Mission Impossible and so on, but I will retain everything else that I've suggested to you. Had you been aware of all of those things, would you still have taken this to be the mere actions of an informer? Or would you not have suspected that this is actually someone who is complicit in the delivery of this consignment, delivery and receipt of this consignment?
Yeah, Commissioner, with regard to Unku, yes, if we had that kind of information, we were going to look at these things differently.
That's why I'm saying, had you had?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
We were going to, even maybe the kind of investigation was not going to be the way the investigation was. If we had that kind of information, unfortunately, we didn't have.
Okay. Just advise me, yes, I know you tried to get hold of the poison docket.
Yes.
You did not succeed. Just remind me again, how high did that request or inquiry about the docket, how high did it go on the IPID side? Who was the most senior on your side who tried to get hold of the docket after the meeting that you referred to had failed?
It was the NHI, the National Head of Investigation.
Okay, all right. Is that the highest you could have gone? Couldn't you have gone to, was it already General Libya then?
Yeah, it was General Libya, but the NHI was supposed to have escalated the matter to the Executive Director, of which I don't think the matter was escalated. Yeah.
So it was beyond you at that stage?
Yes.
Couldn't you have made the request to the head, your head, to escalate it to General Libya?
The matter was escalated to General Libya, but
It was
escalated to General Libya.
Within the Hawks, yeah.
Yes, but we did not get any positive feedback.
Okay. Did you get to, what did General Libya do? Do you know?
General Libya, I think he spoke to my supervisor, the one who drafted the letter to him.
No, I mean with subs, on the sub side.
On the sub sides, it was General Libya.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, at paragraph 24 of your statement, you say General Libya did not assist IPID with the request. Instead, he indicated that IPID must investigate without the copies of that docket.
Yes.
So he didn't engage subs on the matter.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Can I just ask on the back of the discussion that you've just had with the chair, had you known certain things that have now come to light about Mr. Nku, whether you would have still proceeded the same way? Now, when Mr. Nku says to you that he's an informer, and the other police officers tell you that, this is Mashaba, Chief Mashaba tells you that that's his informer, you don't verify that.
No.
You've said that he told you that his handler is someone that has passed, but you do know subsystems, that they do have registered informants. I'm sure you have an idea that they don't necessarily work alone. So even if a general has passed on a handler, there may well be somebody. You didn't, and you don't check that to verify who this supposed source is.
No, well, we did not verify.
You did not do that.
No.
Is it because that's not what you do? You take things on face value. I think I'm trying to, like the chair, I'm trying to understand how you conduct your investigations and whether, as I must say, it seems to me to have been the case with this, that you don't get, the IPID doesn't get used to as in this case, I suspect that that's what happened with the complaint that came to you, to pursue meritless cases because there are agendas. People want to get to some point. You don't verify that kind of basic information. Is Nku indeed an informer? We have a way of checking with the SAPs. You don't do those kind of checks.
Commissioners, with Nku, because he mentioned somebody who already passed, and he was not telling us that he was a registered informer. We did not verify that kind of information. But on the day of this, he was saying now he's giving information to Chief Mashaba. So he was now the handler of Chief Mashaba.
Chief Mashaba was his handler now.
Yeah, he said now because of he used to give information to that the late general. Now he's giving information to Mashaba.
So the reference then to that late general for purpose of your investigation should be relevant. If it meant nothing, if it's someone that you used to share information with, but it has no bearing on this, then it's irrelevant. You proceeded solely on the basis that he is an informer of Mashaba, of Chief Mashaba, who is his handler. That must be the basis on which you proceeded.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
This again raises the point on which Commissioner Kumalo was engaging you. He's an informer, informing about drugs. And what's he got to do? What's Mashaba got to do with drugs that he even has this informer who's assisting him about drugs? It just does not make sense. Do you want to comment?
Commissioner, I don't know the job description of Chief Mashaba, but from I can confirm, commissioners, that we also have cases where people from the traffic police working with the SAPS members, especially the Hawks, do some operation. I don't know their memorandum of understanding. I don't know whether they do have a memorandum of understanding when it comes to these kind of operations or not. I don't know.
Thank you.
Perhaps if you had asked the question, and you can answer any way you want, that where does Mashaba come into this, as in jurisdiction and his powers, you may well have come to a different conclusion about the decision to arrest him if you found he was acting out of jurisdiction and outside his powers. Do you have any view about that?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
And I thought just crossed my mind because when I was engaging you on how we would have acted had you known otherwise, I suddenly discarded the information relating to a May 2021 consignment. I should not have discarded that. That was actually crucial in terms of how you would have acted had you been aware of certain facts. Because what that does is to show, especially that May consignment. It actually shows the concern that these people had about receiving that consignment. And this Alpha is even saying, if anything goes wrong, then we are in trouble. Basically saying we must receive that consignment. And it's apparently two private individuals interacting. And that had nothing to do with Mr. So-called informer, with Mr. Nku giving information to his handlers. He's actually talking to people who appear to be the people to receive the drugs. Do you see what I mean? So that tells you that one cannot, when it comes to the Ayrton bust, that suddenly who is no longer concerned with receiving the drugs. If he was concerned with receiving the drugs with regard to the May consignment, it must be the case, or indications at least are that, even with regard to the Ayrton bust, he still wanted to receive the drugs. But as I say, I'm posing my question in the context of how would you have acted had you been aware of all these facts? You've already commented. I'm not expecting a response.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm just giving you the full picture.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Director, to be fair to you, this is not a question. I'm just bringing to your attention that Mr. Makhano's superior deposed to an affidavit much later, probably, where he makes it clear that as a commander, he was not aware of the operation since Mr. Makhano's duties are office-bound, and that is in accordance with his performance enhancement plan. So his job is to be in the office and analyze statistics. He should not be opening containers outside of jurisdiction. Yeah.
Director, just to be fair to you, I think through our own engagement, you did at least indicate that even without having the information that was relayed to you about the text, from your own interaction with Mr. Nku, you have some misgivings about him. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes. And I think the follow-up question would have been that in that case then, surely you should have treated whatever that he gives you, or at least the people that he feeds information to, perhaps with some element of caution, I suppose, to put it lightly.
Commissioner, it was difficult without having to hear the other side of the story, because if we had the copies of the docket, we were going to know as to what was the other people on the other docket are saying. So we only had one side of the story.
Yes, no, I accept that. My question is that if already the source of the information itself is questionable, then the sequence of that information itself should be treated with some level of caution as to how that information is handled going forward. At least from your side, to say, well, Mashaba is receiving this information from someone that I'm already, I want to use the word suspicious of, reservedly so. Surely that should trigger a bit of a red flag in going forward. So the very source that I spoke to, that fed the information to Mashaba, and then he relates to the rest of the guys. I'm saying that kind of information should, I would say, raise a red flag at the very beginning, to say the very source of information is questionable.
Commissioner, it did, but the thing is, if the police, they don't want with a docket, it's like they were hiding something. So we don't know whether our suspicion by just interviewing this person alone, it was going to be enough. And honestly speaking, 70% of our complainants are always like dodgy at IPID. So most of the complainants, they are dodgy. So, but it doesn't mean we mustn't follow their complaint. We follow their complaint. We can either make negative or positive recommendations, general recommendations, or sometimes even policy recommendations.
Hence my earlier statement to you that that's the very reason why you should guard against this IPID being used or being weaponized against the police, regardless of the source of the complaint.
Yes.
Yes. I think we are just wrapping up on a section dealing with the allegations.
Okay.
So let's wrap that up. My understanding is that at least the three complainants, they raised these allegations against General Kadwa, Brigadier Sekgobela, Colonel Steyn, Captain Sebula by then, and General Khan. And they opened a case of defeat the ends of justice. My question to you is that, in your understanding, were these allegations raised against them individually, or is it something that you approached as a matter of them having acted in concert, or as one would say, common purpose? How did you understand the charges?
I understood that they acted in common purpose, because if you check, the first person who arrived at the crime scene was General Khan, who took over the crime scene and started giving people direction as to what must happen. And then General Khan, in his statement, he indicates that he handed over the scene to General Kadwa. And then from General Kadwa, now the scene was with Colonel Sebula. So, however, Brigadier Sekgobela, Colonel Steyn, and were also there at the crime scene.
But my understanding is that, for example, they are not from the same unit, are they?
General Khan, yes, is from Crime Intelligence, and the other members, they're from DPCI.
Yes. So I'm trying to understand, how did you then arrive, and I'll tell you why I'm asking this question, how did you then arrive to a conclusion to say you were going to investigate this as a common purpose?
Because what happened at the crime scene, it was like a chain. After General Khan came and took over the crime scene and did what he did at the crime scene, he said he handed over the crime scene to General Kadwa. After he handed over to General Kadwa, then Captain Sebula, Lieutenant Colonel Sebula took over and arrested those four members.
I'll tell you what my difficulty is. For example, an easiest example will be Colonel Steyn. None of the statements implicate him in any form or manner. I'm not certain what his role is to be then put in a situation where he's accused of having acted in concert.
Commissioner, is because he was mentioned by the complainants, and when I asked for his explanation as to his role, the question of him explaining what was his role at the crime scene was posed to him. Just that I don't remember what was his response. But it was one of the questions that was posed to him as to what was his role at the crime scene, because the complainants were mentioning them by names.
I have gone through their statements, the complainants, and to some extent, the what you call the independent witnesses. I mean, for example, what will be of concern to me is that you will read the statement of Sergeant Pakula and Sergeant Sape, and they say directly so that the person who stopped them from deploying their dog to to investigate or to sniff around was, I think, his warrant officer, Rekhoto. That seems to be that one person, at least, at the very least, there's a direct allegation against him. And Sape and Sergeant Sape and Sergeant Pakula, they gave you a statement to that effect. That, to me, at least, is the closest you'll come to defeating the ends of justice. But that is not reflected anywhere in your findings. Do you want to comment?
Yeah, because with regard to Rekhoto, they didn't know where to find Rekhoto. I was hoping that maybe if I can get the copy of the docket, Rekhoto's information will be in that other docket. Because at some point, I don't remember who mentioned the issue of Rekhoto calling, who indicated that General Khan is on his way. So that is why one of the questions that was posed to General Khan was for him to indicate as to how did he know about the crime scene. I was hoping that he was going to indicate that Rekhoto is the one who informed him. However, instead of mentioning Rekhoto, he mentioned somebody else. He mentioned...
I think it's Rickett.
No, not Rickett. He mentioned a certain sergeant who worked at the 10,111. And I followed on the issue of that person to obtain his statement. I thought maybe he was going to mention Rekhoto because we don't know. We don't have the details of Rekhoto. We don't know where to find Rekhoto.
Regarding what constituted the defeating of the ends of justice, all I heard you say, I hope I understood you correctly, was this one handing over the scene to this one and that one handing it over to yet another one. I didn't hear you explain where exactly the defeating was and what exactly it consisted in.
Commissioner, in them arresting these people who made
because it could not have just have been about the arrest, because it must also relate to what was sought to be achieved that was then defeated by the acts or conduct of the people complained about. What exactly was, where exactly did the defeating lie?
Okay. Commissioners,
I'm not saying the arrest was irrelevant, no,
yeah.
but surely it could not be the beginning and end.
Yes, and the issue of...
No, the handing over of the scene.
Yes. There was an issue of the dog unit as well, that the dog unit was called, but they did not do the job at the crime scene.
Must you always have a dog at the crime scene? Must you always have dogs at the crime scene for this purpose?
Because it was drugs, and the dog that was called was for the narcotics.
I'm saying, is it obligatory that you should always have dogs? And if you do not have them, then where someone felt like they should be called, then the ends of justice have been defeated if somebody else had a different view, for example.
But Commissioner, a narcotic dog was relevant for that particular crime.
And once you don't have it, defeating.
No. But if you call the dog unit and then the dog unit does not do the job because of somebody doesn't want them to do the job, then yes, it is defeating.
Were the dogs going to sniff the container maybe for more bags?
Yes, the dog was supposed to have checked the whole area to check if there are any other drugs that were maybe stored in that particular warehouse.
Anything
and
else?
Check the container maybe for more drugs.
Anything else?
That's what I can think of now. Yeah.
Because I'm asking, for example, because we know that once other people were involved, the LCRC was called. LCRC, which ought to have been called right at the beginning, before the bags were loaded onto Warrant Officer Mokhana's van.
Yes.
And these people that are now supposed to have defeated the ends of justice call the LCRC for the LCRC to do its job. Would people wanted to defeat the ends of justice have done anything like that?
Commissioner, the first people who arrive at the scene, I think it is the statement of Warrant Officer Mokhana.
It's him, Chief Mashaba and Mr. Nku, whose motor vehicle was parked some distance away.
Yes.
They were the three who arrived, first to arrive at the scene.
Yes. I'm talking about the LCRC person. I wanted to talk about the issue of the LCRC person.
Yes.
That they did call the relevant stakeholders to come at the crime scene, whereas the LCRC was one of those.
Who of these two called the LCRC?
Mokhana, with the assistance of the Boys police.
Definitely not Warrant Officer Mokhana.
It was.
Assistant Director, you didn't think anything was wrong with this report or complaint by these three people, that the story included that they got there, the three of them, which is Mr. Nku, Mr. Mokhana, Warrant Officer Mokhana, and Chief Mashaba. They got there, opened the container, and then unpacked, took the drugs onto Warrant Officer Mokhana's van. When there's no LCRC, there's no dog, there's nothing at that point. It's just the three of them with Mr. Nku that you say you did think something was dodgy about him. You didn't think something about this story is problematic.
Not the story per se, but what happened in terms of handling the crime scene was wrong for them to take those bags and load them in the bakkie.
And you didn't think that could reasonably find a basis for the other officers to think they are up to mischief? If you want to reduce it to handling of the crime scene, I think in the end we do find out that it was actually much more than just mishandling a crime scene. But we're talking about you. You receive a complaint. They tell you that they followed this truck. It parked. Mokhana backs up his van. They instruct the employees of that place to put the drugs onto Mr. Mokhana's, onto Warrant Officer Mokhana's bakkie. There's no LCRC. They're not calling any. There's no one else. Just the three of them. You're saying you didn't think something does not seem right here. Maybe I need to interrogate this complaint further. Because to me, I'm not an IPID officer, I'm not a police officer, but it seems obviously deeply suspicious that police officers would come in an unmarked van and then transfer drugs from a container when you know there are protocols about crime scene management. You're saying you didn't think this warranted you to keep an inquiring mind about this?
Commissioner, we did ask about that, but he indicated, it's just that I don't remember whether it was Mokhana who called the LCRC
No, he did
person.
not. No, he did not. So we know from his evidence that he did not. He did not call the LCRC. He had nothing to do. Mokhana had nothing to do with calling the LCRC. In fact, his evidence is he knows nothing about drugs and crimes, the management of a drug bust scene.
Yes, that one indeed, from what happened at the crime scene, you can tell that he had no knowledge of managing the crime scene. But from what we have, the SRC person was called. The only challenge was that they've already contaminated the scene by taking the drugs from the container into the bikey. But when we asked them about that, they indicated that they were waiting for the SRC person to come and take pictures and package the drugs.
I must say that I'm surprised that you didn't think that that kind of conduct is sufficiently suspicious to have you inquire further. I know nothing about this stuff, but I must say that the first time I heard that's what happened, it made me ask the question, why would he do that? He knows the protocols, and that's why we engaged him on, do you know anything about crime scene management that involves drug busts? And he told us, I've never done this before. My job doesn't involve this. So I ask you in that context that I would have thought you would know more than I had the first time here, to have an inquiring mind about what in fact was going on here. Let me find out before I make conclusions that there was a defeating the ends of justice case here. But I've heard what you say.
Okay, Commissioner.
And what, if anything, did you make of the fact that they had already loaded these bags onto Warrant Officer Makhana's van?
We asked about
They take them, they handle them, there are hands all over them, there are fingerprints all over them, and then they load them onto Warrant Officer Makhana's van. What did you make of that? Because it's something that you were aware of. It's at page 37 of your statement, at page 10. What did you make of that? So any chance of fingerprints being uplifted, DNA being uplifted, were almost gone, if not gone altogether. Well, what did you make of that?
We did ask commissioners about this conduct, but it was the issue of...
No, what did you make of it? What did you think about it? I'm not asking about whether you asked them about it.
It was the issue of saying that they don't know how to handle the scene. Surely they've never even maybe attended the crime scene management.
Would that not tell you then that perhaps people who have better knowledge, who come in and say, get out of the way, were not necessarily defeating the ends of justice?
Yes, if the police maybe took over the crime scene...
They just say, you bumbling lot, just get out of the way, let us do a proper job of this. Would that not have told you that those who came later were actually the people who were doing what ought to have been done?
Yes, Commissioner. However, the conduct of not knowing how to handle a crime scene does not necessarily make it a criminal offense.
I'm not suggesting that it is. That's not what my question is suggesting to you.
The thing is, the police who came, the Hawks who came later to come and handle the scene, did not only handle the scene, they also arrested these people.
So that something wrong was done with regard to what ought to have been done, not so much that
Yes.
just because they were arrested. That's the issue.
Not
I'm not suggesting, by the way, that it is right or correct to arrest someone who should not be arrested. That's not what I'm suggesting.
okay. Commissioner, it's not only that. The police did not even try and establish as to who's the owner of these drugs. Today,
How would you have been established? How would you have been able to establish that there and then?
No. I mean now, even now.
Yes. Yes.
because of the drugs were in the Scania container.
Yes.
I don't know whether they did follow up on the Scania issue, but from the information that we received, like on the street, was that the CEO of Scania at that particular time was from Brazil, who later resigned or something like that and left the country. So I don't know if maybe at that particular time they've made follow-ups on this matter. Maybe we were going to have the real
That's-
owner of those drugs.
None of that is answering my question, but I will leave it.
Thank you. I think to be fair to you, Director, I think on the issue of the dogs, I think there was a mention that there's a suspicion that there could have been more containers. I think from the information that you received, that there could have been about 3 containers containing, I think other ones containing guns and other ones containing drugs as well. And I suppose the stopping of the dogs at least shut that window of opportunity.
That's true, Commissioner.
If that was the case.
Yes. But that would be only in relation of the one container, because from the evidence, there's only one container that came up, or that's at issue in Eriton.
It's an issue in Eriton, Chair.
One container.
That it could have been 3 containers on the premises. At least the information that was relayed. It comes across later on when we get affidavits from people from Scania that were expecting 3 containers.
So
Whether they
the-
would have arrived the same day or a day before, that's something else.
Yeah, that's what I'm clarifying. You're not saying that the evidence is that at the time of this incident that is happening on the premises of Scania, there was another 2 containers
No,
that
no,
the dogs would have helped to sniff out. You're not saying.
No, we're not saying that.
Okay.
We're just saying to an extent that there could have been, a dog could have, but that's as high as it goes. But there's no evidence to suggest that there were more
No.
than that.
Please correct me. I may be misunderstanding the rest of the evidence. My understanding was that the vessel coming in with a container, with containers, or this particular container even, there were other 3 containers that were going with this particular one, but only one came up to Gauteng to become an issue in this case.
We don't know. That's the difficulty,
Okay.
Commissioner. What became of those 2? Whether they stayed there or they moved prior to the 9th or the 8th, it remains a question.
So is the point that the dogs would have been used on more than just the one container that contained the suspected drugs
Yes.
or the suspected cocaine? So they would have sniffed at a minimum of 3 containers on the day.
For what it's worth, Chair.
On the day.
For what it's worth. But I remember I still have the reservation to say, but even the person who stopped the dogs is also, it has nothing to do with the 5 accused in any event.
But to leap to that conclusion, you would have to assume that on the day at Scania, there were, in addition to this container, 2 other containers. Because if you were saying they might still be coming 2 or 3 days later, calling the dogs on that day actually makes no sense.
No, that's perfectly true, Commissioner.
And from what we saw, there was not another container that came from Durban on that day that was in the premises. Because if it was there, the policemen who were there would have searched those containers, even without the dogs.
That's all I can take it as far as that, Chair. to
We
say.
may not have seen others, at least in the pictures that we were shown, but even if there were, the focus was just on this one, on the evidence before us. Yeah.
That's
Thank
true,
you.
Chair.
So I don't think that assists you,
I tried, Chair.
Assistant Director.
Commissioners, in fact, that whole thing, they were expecting 11 containers. But they are saying from these 11 containers, 3 of those containers, 2 had drugs and 1 had firearms. So the thing is, I didn't even see the photo album of the crime scene on the day of incident, so I cannot say much.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
what we do know is Mr. Nku's information related to this one container, the one that he followed all the way from Durban, and he parked inside Scania to watch its unloading. At least we know that much, that their interest in this operation that plays out in Ayrton was on this one container.
And so was the interest of Chief Mashaba
Yes.
and Warrant Officer Mokhana, just this one container.
Yes, I'm not sure about the 2 containers, whether it was on the same day or the previous day, or I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Musigiri.
Thank you, Chair. Assistant Director, I want us to move then to the next subtopic on page 7, where we deal with a request for copies of docket Boys Cast 98/7 2021. Can you then pick it up from paragraph 19 and read that into the record, please?
On 2021-10-21, I've made contact with investigating office of DPCI Captain Sibula, requesting the copy of the docket. He said we must come to his office at Germiston on 2021-10-22 to collect it. That is like the following day. My colleague and I went to Germiston as agreed, but to our surprise, on our arrival, Captain Sibula was not in the office. He was contacted on his cell phone and he indicated that he was not going to give IPID copies of the docket, copy of the docket.
I just find out, well, surely there is a protocol of how you go about getting dockets. We had Colonel Sibula earlier before you testifying, and part of his justification why there is a formality or there has to be a formality was that anyone could call and want a document out of a docket, and if there are no formal ways of doing it, then people could just end up sharing documents in a docket without more it sort of seems to make sense, that kind of explanation. And so I would expect that you have protocols of how do you get a docket out of the SAPS for your investigations.
Okay. Commissioners, with regard to getting the copies of the docket, an investigator can just go to the police station, or maybe you call to find out as to who is the investigating officer first to make that kind of arrangements. What we normally do when we arrive at the police station or whatever unit of the SAPS, they normally take the picture of our appointment cards to say this person, I gave the copies of the docket to this particular person. But there's no issue of saying you must request the copies of the docket from the commander, because as IPID we rely on section 29 subsection 2 of the IPID Act that talks of cooperation, that SAPS must cooperate with IPID. So there's nothing like that we must maybe request the dockets from the commander. You can only do that if maybe I know the commander of that particular police station and I don't know who's the investigating officer of the case. Then I can liaise with the commander.
And there's no requirement for a certain form that it must take. There's nothing like you have to do it in writing, even if it's an email. There's nothing like that.
Nothing, Commissioner.
Perhaps you should have, so that you don't have Colonel Sibula appearing and saying, I never got such a request.
No.
So maybe you should have some kind of protocol.
Maybe that one can be addressed in terms of maybe fixing our standard operating procedures.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
It can
Thank
be
you.
a standard way of doing things.
Thank you.
And to be fair to you, this letter on page 34, assuming you had not asked for it formally, by the time you got to this November letter on page 34, it's in writing from your director to General Libya, and you are making it clear there that you are asking for this docket. So even if one accepts that in October you did not follow a formal process, within a month you write to General Libya, and it's a
Yes.
formal letter from your director saying,
Yeah.
please intervene, we're looking for this docket
Yes.
for the purposes of this inquiry we are conducting.
That's correct, Commissioner.
Yes, you may proceed.
The matter was escalated to Brigadier Skhobela, that is Captain Sibula's commander, and she said she will talk to Captain Sibula and she will give us feedback. A follow-up was made with Brigadier Skhobela on her cell phone, but the phone was always on voicemail and she never returned the call. On 2021-10-28, an email was sent to General Kadwa seeking his intervention, and the meeting was arranged for IPID and DPCI at Jamestown on 2021-11-05. On 2021-11-04, at about 1700 hours, the staff office of General Kadwa called me and said the meeting was cancelled due to unavailability of General Kadwa and the legal services. However, there was no other date provided to IPID. On 2021-11-17, my supervisor drafted a letter to General Libya, who is the national DPCI head, and was signed by the IPID executive director. The letter was to request his intervention and get a copy of a docket Boysen's Case 98 of 7/2021. On 2021-11-24, the letter was delivered to General Libya's office at Silverton, and it was received by his staff officer. General Libya did not assist IPID with the request. Instead, he indicated that IPID must investigate without the copies of that docket. It must noted that most of the cases that IPID investigate emanates from cases investigated by the police. It is a standard practice that IPID always requests the copies of the docket in terms of Section 29, subsection 2 of the IPID Act 1 of 2011. The member of the South African Police or Municipal Police Service must provide their full cooperation to the Directorate, including but not limited to, number A, the arrangement of identification parade within 48 hours of the request made by the Directorate. B, the availability of members for the taking of an affidavit or an affirmed declaration to give evidence or produce any document in that member's possession or under his or her control which has a bearing on the matter being investigated. C, any other information or documentation required for investigation purposes. Whereas Section 33, subsection 3 of IPID Act 1 of 2011 stipulates that any police officer who fails to comply with Section 29 is guilty of an offence and liable on conviction for a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years.
IPID has this power in Section 33(3). It gives you quite serious power to compel compliance with 29(2). Does IPID use this power? Has it ever used this power?
Yes, Commissioner, this Section 33, we also have the regulations. In terms of the regulations, because Section 21, we've got subsection 1 and 2. With subsection 1, it deals with the reporting of the cases to IPID. So the regulation in terms of section 29, subsection 1, is clear as to what must happen if the police fails to report the case. However, in terms of subsection 2, it doesn't give us a clear directives as to what must happen. It talks about talking to the person, requesting the reasons for not giving the documents, and then the NHI or the provincial management in terms of the province will give advice as to what must happen.
Well, I mean, implicit in 33(3) is that a criminal charge can be laid, a criminal
Yes.
complaint against a non-cooperative or uncooperative police officer.
Yeah.
And so whatever the regulations say, maybe the regulations say you must first follow these steps, try and persuade intergovernmental relations kind of provisions. Maybe it says that, but my question is, let me assume on the back of what you've said that the regulations require you to follow, they provide for a certain process before you get to the drastic step of laying a criminal complaint.
Yes.
My question is, I'm now at the criminal complaint stage, the way General Libya has ignored you. I think it's also General Skobela or Colonel
General Kadwa.
Kadwa has ignored you where there's been formal correspondence.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you have already exhausted whatever processes
Yes.
there may be that try to find a resolution, a friendly resolution to this. My question is now at the tail end. Has IPID ever invoked that provision that permits you to lay a criminal complaint and have people prosecuted?
Yeah, in terms of section 29, subsection 1, we do have most of those cases of non-compliance.
So you have laid criminal
Criminal
complaints?
complaints, yeah. But the thing is with subsection 2, this one was, I would say it was a peculiar case. It has never happened before where we request a docket and somebody refused with the docket. It was one of its kind.
And nothing happened here?
And nothing happened.
No criminal complaint was laid?
Yes, because the NHR was supposed to give me instruction of saying go and open a case.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Perhaps to that, we can add, there should be a copy of a government gazette next to you there. I just need to refer you to that section. Commissioners, you should have a copy of the government gazette dealing with the IPID Act. Just to piggyback on section 33.3, can you also look into 33.1 and perhaps read that into the record?
You want me to go through?
Just read 33.1 only.
33.1, it says, any person or private entity who interferes, hinders, or obstructs the executive director or member of the directorate in the exercise or performance of his or her powers or functions is guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years.
Yes, so my concern is that I think just to follow up on the point raised by Commissioner Baloyi is that there seems to be somehow some teeth being given to IPID. But the question is really, are they using same to bite? And I'll tell you why. I mean, if we go, for example, to the letter that you referred to by Commissioner Kumalo on page, I need to go to page 35.
Page
35
of my statement
of your statement, yes. So the annexures,
or the annexure.
yes.
Annexure? What is the annexure
It will
number?
be TK11. Let me just double check. Yes, it's TK11.
11.
So it's a letter that you sent to, well, it was sent by your office
Okay.
to General Lebea's office. And my concern is that, I mean, from paragraph 1 to 7, it's just the background. And the essence of your letter really is paragraph 8 on page 35, which says this. It is against this background that we request general intervention on this matter, as the continued delay in the obtaining copies of the docket hampers service delivery. My concern is that this letter, it does not come out as instructive as it could, given the powers that we've read to you. Yes, I understand that there are regulations, but I would have expected at the very least to say what kind of intervention exactly you are requesting. Secondly, perhaps state out that failure to comply, what would that potentially attract in terms of the act? And also explain what is meant by hampering service delivery. You know, and perhaps lastly, mention the consequences. And I suppose as lawyers as well, I would have found this letter to be having more bite if at least it gave deadlines as to when at least General Lebea ought to have responded to this, so that you can say failure to respond by this date will take you that you are also hindering or obstructing our service delivery as it's put there. What's your comment to that?
I agree with that, Commissioner, because the letter does not have the time frame as to when do we need the copies of this docket.
And I've mentioned it's not only the timeline, it's other issues as well, that you don't set out what you require, but also the consequences of failure to comply. Now, going back to your statement at paragraph 24, that's on page 8.
On 2021-11-17, my supervisor drafted a letter to General Lebea, National Head of DPCI, and was signed by IPID Executive Director.
Sorry,
No,
did we not stop at 27? Why are we going back to 24?
yes, I just wanted to ask you a question on 24. You'll see the last sentence there. You say that General Lebea did not assist IPID with the request. Instead, he indicated that IPID must investigate without the copies of that docket. I've searched through the documents that you provided to us. Can you assist us? Where did he indicate that? Or can you recall where he indicated that?
I don't have anything in writing with regard to that, but I remember we had the meeting with the NHI as a team, as the NC team, and the message was conveyed to me that General Lebea said we must investigate without the copies of the docket.
Yes, I see that at paragraph 27, you say that the issue was discussed with the National Head of Investigation, and I was advised to continue with the investigation without the requested copies of the docket.
Yes.
I suppose my question then, ultimately, this was an internal decision to say, look,
Yeah, it was.
we have tried.
Yes.
Okay.
But not try enough because we're supposed to have opened a case.
Yes. I want us then to move to the next topic, which relates to your investigation. It says investigations conducted by IPID, and there you start with the statements that you took from the independent witnesses at paragraph 28. Can you take it from there, please?
Okay. IPID obtained the statement of other independent witnesses, the truck driver, the lady who was about to receive the goods, and the manager at Daniel. The first person is Brightman Fusim Tembu, who was the truck driver. His statement attached the statement STK12 indicated that on 2021-0708 in the morning he was in Durban when he received a message from his company with the container details to be collected at Durban Harbour. He arrived at the Durban Harbour at about 13:20. He inspected the container and the seal was intact. He then took the container and drove to Rorikop, where he arrived at about 20:20. On 2021-0709 at about 6:30, he arrived at work and went to inspect the truck and found that the seal was still intact. He was about to take the container to Ayrton when he was informed that there are police officers who will escort him as they wanted to search the container. He was escorted by the police to Ayrton, and on arrival, the container was received by Jolene, who asked him to put the container at the bay. He did not see who opened the container. When he alighted from the truck, he noticed the black bags being loaded from the container into the Nissan NP300. A tall guy who identified himself as a police officer informed him that he was under arrest for transporting drugs. He tried to explain to the police officer that he did not know what was inside the container.
Just find out what did you, because as I understand your report, part of your complaints or your what causes you to refer to find that there is a case for defeating the ends of justice in this complaint is that the police officers that arrived on the scene, the General Khans and them, they caused the driver to be released. You accept that you accepted that he was under arrest, and then they ordered that he be released. Can I just understand what is it about the conduct of the driver that you say that indicates to his arrest being proper, and therefore the instruction to release him being a case of defeating the ends of justice?
Other than the issue that he was the driver of the truck, when we interviewed the driver, it was clear that the driver did not know what was in the container. So even the first members who arrived first, they were supposed to have made like a proper investigation before they can arrest people.
So was your conclusion then about the driver that his arrest by Mahano Pakula team, Mashaba team, should not have happened?
It was premature.
Yeah, it shouldn't have happened.
Yes.
You used the word premature, but
Yes.
my question is,
Yeah.
given his explanation.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think at that particular time, no one had interviewed him. They didn't even know the processes as to how does this person get these notifications with regard to collecting these containers and stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps just on it's a different subject, but still affecting the driver. I've read from you've provided us with a copy of your diary entry where you interviewed Mr. Nku. And he seems to suggest there, if my memory serves me well, that the driver is involved or somehow is implicated. Did I capture that? Is my recollection correct?
Yes, Commissioner, he did mention something like that.
Yeah.
Because he was indicating that the driver did not pass through these way bridges. So he drove from Devon to Rodikop without stopping at any way bridges. And according to him, because of him doing that, he knew what was inside the container.
And this weight bridges is where there's a potential, I suppose, search
Yes.
of the trucks.
Of the trucks, yes.
Yeah. What was it that the only inference from him to say because he didn't stop?
Yeah, that was the only
that
inference.
renders him
Yeah.
suspicious as well.
Yeah. He was saying maybe he was instructed by somebody that he mustn't stop anyway. He must just drive from Devon to Rodikop.
Now, when you spoke to Jolene and them, the Kukemos, did you explore this with them in terms of the traveling of the truck and the stops? Are they compulsory? Did you take this issue further with them when you interviewed them?
Commissioners, the Jolene's and the other lady who works for Scania, Jolene works for Scania, I think in South Africa. There's that other one, Scania Brazil. They don't know as to the traveling arrangements because the company, the truck company belongs to another company. It belongs to Yellow Jersey,
Yes.
not the Scania, the Freighten, because the Jolene's company is Freighten, but they deals with Scania. In Jolene is Scania South Africa and the Roseland Scania Brazil. So they only request the transportation from the other company. What the other company tells their driver, they don't know.
Do you ask the driver about that allegation?
Yes.
And?
And he said no, he didn't get any instruction from anyone.
No.
He
No, sorry. Let me clarify my question. Did you ask him about not stopping at way bridges?
Yes, we did.
And?
And he said he was in a hurry to go back home. He was tired. He didn't want to stop anyway.
Okay, but then later on, and I'm sure Mr. Msikidi will get there, but it's a topic that's related to this. You seem in your conclusions to have accepted that something was wrong with him not stopping at way bridges along the way.
Yes, Commissioner, because normally I don't know what is the purpose of these drugs going to these way bridges, whether there's a reason for them to go. Normally when I drive, I just saw the trucks going through way bridges. I don't know what is the purpose of those trucks going there. But if this one is saying this person did not even go to the way bridges, I went and asked the driver, why you didn't go to the way bridges? And his answer was that, no, I was tired. I just wanted to reach my destination on time.
Okay, you may misunderstand what I'm saying. You say in the conclusion the driver took the container at the harbour at about 13:30 and arrived at his company in Johannesburg at 2000 hours,
Yes.
which is very quick, I agree.
Yeah, it was very quick.
And then this is the part which I'm asking about. You say, which is highly unlikely for the truck. So you seem to give significance or even credence to Nku saying, he didn't stop along the way, which suggests he had instructions. So I was asking that kind of question, that did you accept that the driver must be implicated? That's why he was not stopping at way bridges, or in the way that you now, as you're sitting there, seem to speak about it, you now say, well, that's what Nku said. And yet your conclusion in paragraph 90 suggests you accepted what Nku said, that, yeah, indeed it is suspicious. And I was trying to clarify that with you.
Yeah, Commissioners, it is really suspicious that a truck can travel like from Devon from 1 o'clock and then 8 o'clock is now here in in Johannesburg. It was really suspicious. However, if I were to investigate these, this was supposed to be been investigated by the Hawks to check as to whether is it true that this person did not go via those way bridges or not.
I would say it was supposed, to the extent that it has been put to you by Nku, and you seem to make something of it, but you had to investigate it. Otherwise, you've just accepted the so-called informers' information to you, which may, which may be nothing. If you had investigated, for example, you could have asked Yellow Jersey, and maybe Yellow Jersey might have said, no, don't worry, this driver does this all the time, or there's nothing wrong with him not stopping. And between you and me, Assistant Director, we drive on the road and see very fast trucks, scaringly fast trucks. So the fact that it was fast alone in itself without more, it's difficult to accept that. Therefore, it indicates the driver was in on whatever scheme was going on here. You would be expected to do further investigation of it before you say, yes, the conduct of the driver was suspicious. Ngu is on to something here.
Commissioner, it's difficult to investigate those kind of issues because it was going to look like we are now overstepping on the investigations that is being conducted by the SAPS. However, like I was saying, if we had the copies of the other docket, we're going to see as to what is in the docket, whether the police followed the issue of these way bridges or not. If not, IPID was going to do that. But we didn't want to investigate this issue. And this truck driver is not even a police officer where IPID have mandate to investigate such. So it was supposed to have been done by the police officers.
Yeah. I guess my problem with you is you draw something out of it. If you had just recorded it, as Nku said, and left it at that, and it didn't look like you made anything of it, then you and I would not be having this conversation. We are having this conversation because Nku says this, and then you make something of it in paragraph 30, that yes, of course, that it was suspicious, the driver was suspicious, but you can't then sit there and say, well, it wasn't anything that I could investigate when you're drawing certain conclusions about the travel time. That's my concern about it.
Yeah.
But I've heard you.
Okay.
Thank you, Director. Can we then pick it up at paragraph 34, dealing with Jolene Kukemur?
Okay. Jolene Kukemur Wenzel, the lady who received the container, see attached annexure TK13, say that she is employed by Freight and Logistics Ereton. Her duties include, amongst others, receiving the goods, warehousing, and distribution of Scania, South Africa. On 2021-0709, at about 9, the container arrived at the warehouse from Yellow Jersey. The truck was accompanied by the police officer. On arrival, one police officer approached her and said they have a tip-off and requested her to open the container. She immediately took a file and went to the container to check the seal, comparing it with the arrival notification to check if they correspond. The seal was intact and corresponded. She then requested her colleague to open the container. As they opened the container, the black bags fell out of the container and the police officer said it was drugs. They were instructed to load the bags inside the Nissan Baki. After loading, the tall officer came with cable ties and he said he was arresting them. He was arresting her for receiving the goods, the driver for transporting the goods, and Cornelius because the goods belonged to him. He said he was taking them to the nearest police station.
Before you continue, just for the benefit of the commissioners, because I have consulted with the gentleman involved here, you have also met them. Would you agree with me that when reference is made to the tall officer, it would refer to Mashaba? Would you accept that?
I don't even remember. I think he's tall. I don't remember him.
Of the three, he
Of
is
the
he's the tallest between Pakula. Well, everybody's taller than me, but
I don't remember if he's the tallest, but I think it was him because the first people who arrived, it was him and Mahano.
and Mahan is quite short.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think yes, they are referring to Mashaba.
Yes, so Commissioner, I think for now you can accept that at least when reference is made to the tall officer is Mashaba. And in any event, I think it ties down with what he says in that he effected the arrest.
Suggesting we take judicial notice of that.
Indeed.
All I can say is I did see that Warrant Officer Mahano is not really tall. But as for the rest and who's the tallest, I have no idea.
Deputy Director, can you then continue? I interrupted you when you were about to move to paragraph 38.
Okay. She informed her director about the arrest and that they must meet at the police station. She told them that she can't drive with them, and she went to her office to collect her belongings and went back and found Boyson's police. After some few minutes, police officer in red vehicle arrived and obtained her statement. While the police were busy obtaining her statement, police from Flying Squad and Hawks also arrived, and they dealt with the situation. At about 1700, the police officer who arrived first at the warehouse were arrested by the police officer who alleged they were from the Hawks. Francois Riquet, he states that on 2021-07-09 at about 9, he spoke to General Khan on the phone explaining to him that the situation at the receiving warehouse of Scania in Omnia Park was getting volatile. He told him that the police were threatening him and his colleagues with arrest. He confirms that the container from Brazil was transporting parts, and they opened it on the instruction of the police. Black bags that were not supposed to be there were found in the container.
I just have two questions for you. At paragraph 39, Jolene says that the police from Flying Squad and the Hawks also arrived. And then she says they dealt with the situation. What is your understanding of what she means by that?
Because on from paragraph 37, because the police were telling her that she was being arrested. When she said the police, the Hawks arrived and dealt with the situation, my understanding was that they're the one who said, no, you cannot arrest this one. Then they arrested the other police who came first.
I'm not sure if I understand that, but let's move on to my last question on this aspect. Maybe you'll assist me. From at least for now, I know you interviewed a lot of people, but at least from the 3 independent witnesses that you interviewed, and we just went through their summary, is there anywhere you can draw the elements that will sustain a claim of, if it's the ends of justice, against any of the 5 accused? And if so, can you then draw us to those allegations from these witnesses that will support what Mahan and them are saying?
Okay. These other police officers, they came later at the crime scene. There were 2 police officers from Boysons who arrived first, who arrived after these Makhano and Mashaba arrived at the crime scene. I think they received a complaint from 1011 talking about issue, I think it was hijacking or something like that. They attended to the crime scene. They interviewed Makano and Mashaba. And I think after their interaction with those police officers, they were satisfied with what was happening there, because they also gave their 08, like their report back to 10111, indicating that it is a legit operation, the police are working, and they were assisting the Mashaba and Mokano before even Pakula arrived at the crime scene. So for the Hawks members to come later and arrest these members without even following up on the information as to where the drugs were going, it was something else. Because I believe if maybe they asked Jolene, because Jolene was the one who was going to receive the goods, if they asked maybe as to the processes after receiving the goods, maybe we were going to find out as to where these drugs were going.
How so, though? How would that have been established?
I don't know if it is their practice at the Scania. When Jolene received the goods, maybe she checked everything that is inside the container to confirm as to what is inside, or is it an issue of her checking the seal to confirm that the seal is intact, and then she leaves the container like that, or she normally opens the container. If they asked the right question as to is it the first time when something like this happened to this, when she received this kind of, was it her first time to receive something like this or not? Maybe.
What answer do you think that would have elicited?
Maybe because
if Jolene was aware that there were drugs in there, she would have feigned surprise. Would she not have?
Commissioner, because where the container was, it is a place for freight.
Do you think she would have owned up and said these are my drugs, or these are Scania's drugs? Or?
Not drugs per se. I'm not sure if she will know as to what will be the content on those bags. But maybe she was going to say, no, we normally receive these bags, and then when we receive these bags, this is how we handle the bags. I'm just giving an example. Or she will say, no, this is the first time seeing something like this. Or she will say, we don't open the container because this is freighted.
Now, in the face of being arrested, don't you think, that is by the officers who are now complainants, don't you think that would have caused her to give the sort of answers you are talking about now?
I don't know what was Jolene's statement at that particular time, because I got the information that Pakula was obtaining Jolene's statement when he was arrested. I don't know what kind of questions was he asking Jolene.
I think the thrust of the position of all the people that Warrant Officer Pakula, Warrant Officer Mohana, and Chief Mashaba arrested, I think the thrust of their responses was basically that they knew nothing about
the drugs.
Yes.
Oh.
So I'm not sure what you are suggesting would have taken anybody.
Yeah, but now, Commissioner, the drugs, we've got the drugs here.
Perhaps let me give you some background. People who have expertise in this field have said that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to ever get to know who the person supposed to receive the consignment is. And in fact, I think, the officers who testified or gave evidence on this, they basically said they have never found, in all of their investigations, they have never found the consignee. So I think what you are saying probably has everything to do with the fact that you have no expertise in this field. Your comment on that?
Commissioner, I don't have expertise with drugs, but when you talk about this consignment coming from Brazil,
To give you names, I think it was Flynn, and then also Sander. Both of them said they have never. I think even Colonel Jacob, they have never been able to apprehend
the owner,
the consignee or the owner, as you put it.
I accept that, Commissioner. But if the Hawks, maybe they dealt with the scene not the way they dealt with to maybe the statement of those people. I don't know whether they know more than they are saying at the moment because they were arrested. If maybe the police were working with them at that particular time, maybe, I'm just saying maybe because I don't know, maybe they were going to say more.
Indications, and you say which people probably know more?
Commissioner?
Which people do you say maybe know more? No.
Mashaba and Tumelo.
Okay,
yes.
All right.
Because I cannot talk of Makhanu and Pakula because they only came later.
Makhanu was there right from the beginning. I thought your basis for saying maybe he knows nothing is founded on some other reason, but not the timing of his arrival. He was there right from. He even went to Yellow Jersey, so he was there.
I'm talking
let's not speak at the same time.
Okay.
He was there right from the beginning.
Yes.
I'm not shutting you down. There are problems with transcription when people speak at the same time.
No, I'm saying he came later, Commissioner, because I'm talking about he was only notified in the morning. Even Mashaba called Pokungwani first, and then he was referred to Mashaba. Yes, he was there, but I'm saying maybe he did not have information more than what Mashaba and Nku had. So I'm saying if maybe the police were working, they tried to work with Mashaba and Nku, we're going to get more information.
There, I think you are correct because based on the chats that we have been shown, these others interacted even before Makhano's involvement. At that level, I would agree with you. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Just ask the question, how is the failure to ask the question, who do these drugs belong to, how does it constitute defeating the ends of justice, your conclusion? Because ultimately that's what this is about. It's about certain conduct, and you say that conduct constitutes defeating the ends of justice. And now in your testimony, as you were speaking to the chair, you say they didn't, for example, they prevented them from asking the question, maybe they should have asked Jolene. You're surely not saying the failure to get that question asked is to defeat the ends of justice.
Okay. For them to fail to do proper investigation, I would say from where I'm sitting is like they were protecting the owner. They knew who the owner of the drugs was, but they didn't want, they wanted somebody to be blamed because now these four disturbed this smooth movement of these drugs.
You're also not saying that an investigation would and should have happened on that day in Eraton, on the scene, done and completed and gotten all the answers. You're not suggesting that. Because
Commissioner?
you're not saying that the investigation should have happened on that day on the scene, all these answers obtained, who the drugs belong to, and all of those answers closing, basically getting the answers that you say they should have gotten. And because that did not happen, because the General Khans and others arrived,
Yes.
you're not saying that was the end of it. I mean, an investigation is ongoing, right? It's not just on the day at the scene.
No.
So when you say their conduct on the day at the scene constitutes defeating the ends of justice because they prevented these questions, they prevented getting answers to this and that, you're limiting it to the day as if an investigation is just that one day and that would have been the end of it. Can you maybe just explain?
Commissioner, I'm saying that because of with them arresting these four, they are shifting the whole focus of getting the real owner of the drugs into these four people.
Do you know that by now, by the time you write your report, you know Mahano is not an investigator of narcotics. You know that. You know that Mashaba is not an investigator of this kind of stuff. You know that.
Yes.
You know Nku has nothing to do with all of this.
Yes.
So unless you are saying the defeating of the ends of justice happened on that day, if that's what you're saying, I can see. I may have problems with you saying that, but I can see that you limit it to the facts on the day itself. And then you say an investigation would have been done on the day, all the answers obtained, and you frustrated that happening on the day, and therefore you defeated the ends of justice. I can see that. But if you accept that an investigation would have been an ongoing process, how do you get, and I've given you the fact of Mahano is not an investigator. He had no business to be there beyond that one day. Mashaba is not SEPS. He's not SANEP. He has no business to be there beyond that day if he ever had a business at all. Nku is a supposed informer, so he's completely irrelevant to conducting an investigation, as in he can't be one of the personnel. How do you get to there was a defeating of the ends of justice as if it started and ended on the day itself? It wasn't going to happen to be a continuing process.
Okay. Commissioners, the police were supposed to have opened an inquiry because at that particular time, at the crime scene, nobody knew as to the owner of the said drugs or the said packages. So, but for them to arrest people without having information, I took it as if they knew who the owner was of the drugs, but because of these first four disturbed their own mission, the police mission, or whoever drugs belongs to, now they must punish these first four with arrest.
Were you told that one of the SAPS people that arrived asked about an inquiry number, and Pakula said, "We don't need that. I don't need that. I don't have time for that." When he was asked, "Where is an inquiry number?"
I don't remember.
Well, there is evidence like that Pakula, I think it is Pakula, but it's one of the Mahano party of people who said, I didn't have time, and there's no time for that. This is an urgent operation. So you should be actually charging Pakula for not getting an inquiry number, because they're the first people on the scene. And that's what we've learned from the evidence, that the people that do the drug bust, they are the ones that arrange for the registering of an inquiry number. So you seem also now to be blaming the wrong people for not having an inquiry number, when in fact Pakula and Mahano, as the first responders on the scene, should have gotten that inquiry number. But that, you may not be aware of that evidence, but that's the evidence that we've had.
No, I'm not aware.
Okay, thank you.
Director, before we conclude, the difficulty with all of this is if you look at page 10, paragraph 37 of the statement, which is where you were. They opened the container, black bags fell out. The police officer says it's drugs. Instruct that they be loaded in the Nissan Baki. The tall one starts taking out cable ties and arresting people. There's something seriously wrong with that. Because first of all, you cordon off the scene, you call the right people, they put whatever it is that is found there in exhibit bags, it gets booked in. Within 7 days, it must go to FSL, which must determine that this is drugs. Then the investigation continue and you can arrest people for being in possession of drugs.
That's true.
Here, you're just seeing black bags. For all you know, it could be powder milk. It could be soap. You've got somebody who's only ever arrested people for dacha, deciding that these are drugs and arresting the driver and arresting the manager. You don't do that.
Yeah.
So the mere fact that they had done that was improper to begin with. So it's not shifting blame. As Commissioner Baloyi correctly points out, the investigation does not start and end on the 9th of July. Maybe after 10 days, once it was determined that these were drugs, then the investigation would go back to the driver and the warehouse manager and all those people. And then they become suspects because you've determined that these are drugs. And then you take their statements and possibly they can be arrested. But the way it was done, where containers fall out, bags fall out of a container, they are put in a Nissan Baki and somebody already decides, based on how the bags smell, that these are drugs, was improper. So the simple point is that none of that could happen in a day. The most important thing that should have happened in that day was that the exhibits are properly secured.
Yeah.
They are booked properly, and the prescripts are followed to determine what is in those bags, so that if there's a need to arrest anybody, people can be arrested.
That's true, Commissioner.
But there can be defeating the ends of justice based on within 30 minutes bags fall out. Somebody determines that they are drugs. Somebody already determines who the drugs belong to, and somebody already determines who must be arrested. So the reason why the driver and the other people were released, or there was an instruction that they should be released for the time being, it was because it was premature to arrest them to begin with. Now, Commissioner Baloyi's point, why is that defeating the ends of justice? If the investigation is not closed on the day, it's a continuing investigation, and the very people can still be arrested on some other day, or their statements can still be taken on some other day.
Yeah, I hear you, Commissioner. On that day, no one was supposed to have been arrested.
So stopping there, releasing those people then cannot constitute defeating the ends
No.
of justice if nobody should have been
Should have
arrested.
been, yeah.
I would understand if the driver was a Brazilian who was leaving the country the following day, and his release would have resulted in the police never getting hold of him ever again.
Yes.
But you don't have those facts in this case.
No, I hear you, Commissioner.
So you accept Commissioner Baloy's point.
I accept. That is why even previously I indicated that when Commissioner was saying, I indicated that the arrest was prematurely for the driver, that they were not supposed to have arrested the driver because of when I interviewed the driver, it was clear that the driver didn't know about what was in the container. So I'm saying on that day, no one was supposed to have been arrested. But with them arresting the others, it seems as if they knew where these drugs were going, but they wanted to shift.
Nobody knows that it's drugs on that day.
I don't follow that logic.
Oh, okay. I'll stop where I'm saying nobody was supposed to have been arrested on that day. Okay. Okay.
Leave it there.
Okay.
Assistant Director, just to round off the point by Commissioner Baloy, on page 5 of your statement, at paragraph 18.5, I'll just read that into the record.
Okay.
So 18.5, it says, a police officer who was later known to them as Warrant Officer Rekhoto arrived and had an argument with Warrant Officer Pagula. Warrant Officer Rekhoto did not want them to open a case, but to open an inquiry file. Warrant Officer Pagula refused, and he was then told that General Khan was on his way. So this is just to bring to your attention that the issue of the inquiry file was raised between Rekhoto and Pagula saw no need to pursue that. And I suppose to round off the last conversation you had with Commissioner Khumalo is that we then accept that what if you say that no one was supposed to be arrested, we can accept that you were not investigating a case of unlawful arrest in this case.
No, IP does not have mandate to investigate unlawful arrest.
Yes. Can we then move to paragraph 42? The topic is statements of...
Sorry, you're starting a new heading now.
Yes, Chair.
Statements of sub-stock unit members.
Yes, Chair.
Let's do that tomorrow. Let's adjourn and resume at 9:30 tomorrow.